End of the 2-day set of deliberations that we've been having, and I certainly do not wish to stand between you and the panel and lunch. When he inaugurated the conference yesterday morning, the Minister, Prakash Javadekar, made a very substantive statement. He said, we are not inheriting the earth. We are actually borrowing it from our future generations. Within it contains the way forward for all of us as we navigate the vicissitudes of this very troubled time. We are surrounded on all sides by violence, extreme ideologies, and greed on a scale hitherto unknown to mankind. In the course of the deliberations, we heard some wonderful new ideas. We had Mr. Mohan Rao talking about how wasteful energy consumption is happening right under our own noses and thereby causing such a huge depletion in everything that is good and great on this planet. We had Dr. Chandrasekharan talking about how you can actually convert waste to wealth. We had Brian talk about how people can come together simply by spending more time listening. Brian, in fact, I have a concept called the talk-listen ratio. If all of us can just introspect and see how much time we are interacting with each other. For example, suppose we are interacting with each other for a minute. What percentage of that 1 minute are we talking? And what percentage of that 1 minute are we listening? The two are mutually exclusive. If you talk, you can't listen. And so therefore, the talk-listen ratio tells you your own commitment to listening. And listening, my friends, is the way to growth. We heard my good friend Jivandas Narayan talked about the 4 Purusharthas and how adhering to dharma is the path to sustainability and success. Dr. Ramchandar Singh yesterday stressed how vegetarians leave a much smaller carbon footprint than non-vegetarians. We heard Anuttama Das ji talking about the great grandeur of the Vaishnava tradition. Underpinning every one of these themes is the basic concept of leadership. And unfortunately, leadership is the one subject everyone talks about. If you Google leadership, you will get millions and millions of hits. And yet, it is that one concept, capability, mindset, skill that is singularly lacking across India. I happen to believe that somewhere in our hoary past, leadership deserted our land. And it was conspicuously absent as we evolved over the last few thousand years, which is why we have been the victims of the predations of generation after generations of invaders. We were a very rich society, and rich not just in terms of wealth, just in terms of money, but we are extremely wealthy. Art and culture were at unparalleled levels of sophistication in our land. As a young student of economics, we used to study the history of Indian economic thought. And we knew for a fact what Swamiji just reiterated, that the Indian economy was among the most powerful economies in the world. And in fact, there was a very clearly planned decimation of Indian economic strength by the British. So, we are a very wealthy society. If you want to talk about money, just take the value of the treasure that was found at the Sri Padmanabha Swami temple a few years ago. My estimate is at least $50 billion, not counting the cost of antiquity. And this treasure has been held over for at least 1,000 years, safely in the walls of the temple. So we've been an extremely wealthy society, but somewhere along the line, apart. And for that, all of us and our previous generations have to take responsibility. But the good thing is that we have a very young society emerging in India. 50% of our society, of our population, is below the age of 25. 65% is below the age of 35. I think the hope we have is that the young members of our population will understand the importance of not only regaining our wealth, but also preserving it and handing it over to the future. So coming back, we have suffered a great anemia of leadership. And if we want to make sure that our environment is protected and allowed to regenerate itself, and if we want our economy to grow in an energy efficient, spiritually balanced kind of way, the answer is leadership. People can change, products can change, markets can change, but it's leadership that makes all the difference. According to me, leadership is the ultimate competitive advantage. If you have leadership, you have everything. You will have technology, you will have science, you will have civil society, you will have law and order. But if you don't have leadership, none of these exist. So therefore, my definition of leadership is just 3 words. According to me, leadership is ensuring sustainable results. That's it. Just 3 words. Ensuring sustainable results. The word ensuring makes it very clear that a person who is in a leadership role has to be a guarantor. He cannot trot out excuses for non-performance. So he has to be a guarantor that under all conditions results will be achieved. Ensuring sustainable results. The word sustainable has within it renewability. Doing that which is good for the long term. Breaking this classic contradiction between Preya and Shreya. Paying enough attention to Shreya. Long-term renewal. And of course, the word results. And I don't use results in a light way. I use it in a very technical way. According to me, the definition of results is an ethical outcome subject to 5 conditions: specific, measurable, binary, time-defined, and challenging. So an ethical outcome is an inherent, embedded part of the definition of result. And if we can internalize this, I think the debate becomes much clearer, and every speaker over the last 2 days has been pointing towards these three words. My good friend Jeevan referred to the fact that the Indian banking system was not really shaken or affected by the global meltdown. The Indian banking system is arguably amongst the strongest, soundest banking systems in the world. Dr. Ramchandra referred to the global meltdown. The root cause, I believe, of the global meltdown, and he hit the nail on the head, is not the collapse of the securities market or asset-backed mortgages. It was simply greed. And how to prevent such a global meltdown in future, I think is very clearly indicated by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Dhyayato vishayan pumsa sangas teshu upajayate sangat sanjayate kama kamat krodho vijayate krodhat bhavati sammoha sammohat smriti vibhrama smriti bhramshat buddhinash. Basically, attachment, anger, delusion, selfishness, loss of intellect, ruination. That's the flow chart. So the wealth of this teaching is with us. And if we can spread this message, I think we'll go a long way. But having said all that, leadership is not something we can outsource. We'll have to come back inside. What is internal is what will show outside. So the task, my friends, at the end of these 2 days is very clear. The path doesn't lie outside. The path lies inside. It's for each one of us to introspect and polish and polish and polish and remove every bit of toxicity within ourselves. How do we do that? The great Indian spiritual tradition is very clear. Chant the Maha Mantra, meditate, surrender.